Hello Internet, I'm John Brill, and this is For Liberty. Today we are going to talk about On Liberty by John Stuart Mill, published in 1859. Thomas Jefferson famously defined liberty as follows. Rightful liberty is unobstructed action according to our will within limits drawn around us by the equal rights of others. I do not add, within the limits of the law, because law is often but the tyrant's will, and always so when it violates the rights of the individual. This is a perfect definition of liberty. The Founding Fathers were right on top of things when it came to liberty. They had read their John Locke after all. But there are two books written by later men that make ever clearer the ideas that the Founding Fathers fought for in the 18th century. The first is The Law by Bastiat, published in 1850, that I have already made a video on. And the second is On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. To my mind, these two books are the most essential to understanding the founding principles of America, and that I would elevate to required reading when covering the American Revolution and the American form of government. If you have watched the video on the law, then you already know how it expands upon Jefferson's words. On Liberty is aptly named. Whereas other works will discuss liberty in the context of their main subject, in this book, liberty is the main subject. Here, then, is the thesis of On Liberty. The object of this essay is to assert one very simple principle, as entitled to govern absolutely the dealings of society with the individual in the way of compulsion and control, whether the means used be physical force in the form of legal penalties, or the moral coercion of public opinion. That principle is that the sole end for which mankind are warranted, individually or collectively, in interfering with the liberty of action of any of their number, is self-protection. That the only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. His own good, either physical or moral, is not a sufficient warrant. He cannot rightfully be compelled to do or forbear because it will be better for him to do so, because it will make him happier, because, in the opinions of others, to do so would be wise or even right. These are good reasons for remonstrating with him, or reasoning with him, or persuading him, or entreating him, but not for compelling him, or visiting him with any evil in case he do otherwise. To justify that, the conduct from which it is desired to deter him must be calculated to produce evil to someone else. The only part of the conduct of any one for which he is amenable to society is that which concerns others. In the part which merely concerns himself, his independence is, of right, absolute. Over himself, over his own body and mind, the individual is sovereign. There is one more passage from On Liberty that I would like to feature that connects the freedom of thought, the pursuit of happiness, and the freedom of association and disassociation. There is a sphere of action in which society, as distinguished from the individual, has, if any, only an indirect interest, comprehending all that portion of a person's life and conduct which affects only himself, or if it also affects others, only with their free, voluntary, and undeceived consent and participation. When I say only himself, I mean directly and in the first instance, for whatever affects himself may affect others through himself. This, then, is the appropriate region of human liberty. It comprises, first, the inward domain of consciousness, demanding liberty of conscience in the most comprehensive sense, liberty of thought and feeling, absolute freedom of opinion and sentiment on all subjects, practical or speculative, scientific, moral, or theological. The liberty of expressing and publishing opinions may seem to fall under a different principle, since it belongs to that part of the conduct of an individual which concerns other people. But, being almost of as much importance as the liberty of thought itself, and resting in great part on the same reasons, is practically inseparable from it. Secondly, the principle requires liberty of tastes and pursuits, of framing the plan of our own life to suit our own character, of doing as we like, subject to such consequences as may follow, without impediment from our fellow creatures, so long as what we do does not harm them, even though they should think our conduct foolish, perverse, or wrong. Thirdly, from this liberty of each individual follows the liberty, within the same limits, of combination among individuals, freedom to unite for any purpose not involving harm to others, the persons combining being supposed to be of full age and not forced or deceived. No society in which these liberties are not, on the whole, respected is free, whatever may be its form of government, and none is completely free in which they do not exist absolute and unqualified. The only freedom which deserves the name is that of pursuing our own good in our own way, so long as we do not attempt to deprive others of theirs, or impede their efforts to obtain it. Each is the proper guardian of his own health, whether bodily, mentally, or spiritually. Mankind are greater gainers by suffering each other to live as seems good to themselves, than by compelling each to live as seems good to the rest. I love this stuff. For a deeper understanding of liberty, read the entirety of On Liberty. It is in the public domain, so you can find it free online, and it can be read in a couple of days. Give it a whirl. So, have you read On Liberty by John Stuart Mill? If so, what did you think of it? Comment below and let me know. Thank you for watching, and click here to see more for Liberty.